Yeah. And I think too, finding your community and then also doing something bigger than yourself within that community is an incredibly empowering feeling, and that shapes differently for every person. But I think the thing that's universal is if you find people that are like-minded and like-spirited, and create a, call to action within yourself, it's amazing where it's going to take you.
Welcome to the Shine Strategy Podcast, where entrepreneurs, visionaries, and business owners are getting visible and changing the world. I'm your host, Heather Burgett, an award-winning publicist, entrepreneur, and business mentor. Today's show is sponsored by PR Stars. For more inspiration and Shine strategies, head over to shineinsiders.com now for my free masterclass so that you too can get visible and go from local to global. Hey, Shine Insiders! Are you tired of being the best kept secret in your industry? Well, I have a solution for you, and it's called free publicity, and we can actually get it for you fast. Go ahead on over to podcast.theshinestrategy.com. Over there, you're going to find my free pitch template, and that's going to help you get into major newspapers so that you can stop struggling to find your clients. Let them find you. We also have all of our show notes over there. You'll also see how to join my community and my upcoming free masterclass. So again, that's podcast.theshinestrategy.com. All right, everyone, let's dig in. Hello, Shine Insiders. Thank you so much for being here today. I am really excited to introduce you to someone who is a very dear friend of mine, someone that I have known since we were just young little spring chickens in high school. I'm going to welcome Lila Javan to be with us today and tell us her story. Hi, Lila.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here. Your story is so incredible. I thought instead of me telling people your background and all of that, I just want to dig in and share with them your story, what you've done, how it all happened, and just to kind of give a little bit of insight. Lila is a 3-time cancer survivor, and she had a vision to climb a mountain, and it became a movement. And that movement has now raised over $2 million to help people find a cure for cancer. And this all started, I guess it was back in 2010. Lila, can you tell us where this all began? What happened?
Yeah, in 2010, I was 39 and just kind of living life just normally. Everything was going great, and I ended up being anemic, and I couldn't figure out why I was anemic, but women get anemic a lot. And I remember they were testing for all sorts of things, and I work in the film industry, and finally my doctor was like, okay, well, we have one last test to do. We have to do this thing called a bone marrow biopsy. I was like, okay. We did the test, and she was like, well, can you come in? I just want to check out make sure you're doing okay after it, because it's kind of not a very fun procedure. And I went in, and completely out of the blue, she said that I have acute myeloid leukemia. And it's a very aggressive form of leukemia, and it was in 60% of my blood, and I had to go that day in to the hospital. So it was completely out of the blue and a total shock.
Yes, I remember, and that was so shocking. And I think I asked you at the time, what are your options? Are you going to explore any other alternatives? And you basically at that time said that they told you didn't have time to even do that. This was an urgent situation. So you immediately booked in to the treatment center at UCLA, right?
Yeah, I got diagnosed on a Thursday, and by Saturday I was in the hospital on 24/7 chemo. That fast. And it was that urgent. It was sort of one of those moments where the thing with AML is as soon as you know it, because it's acute, it's very fast growing. So you need to get on top of it as quickly as possible. It was an intense 48 hours for sure.
Yeah, just all of a sudden you're living your life, and then all of a sudden, boom, here you are, life-changing situation. And one thing I have to give you credit for through all of this is just with how much grace you handled yourself. And I think sometimes when these things happen, it's also you're going through it and it's so much for you to process and deal with, but then it's all the people that care for you and love you that you also have to kind of help manage all of that because, everyone reacts differently to crises.
Yeah, and I think for that too, you have to be I have a wonderful community of family and friends, and they just really rallied, and it was a huge support. But I think you also have to be really understanding of some people that aren't able to come to you at all times because people are affected differently by cancer treatments, by hospitals. I had some friends who really weren't able to necessarily come at the hospital right away, but that's okay too. Everyone goes through their own things, and you have to kind of understand that. But it was amazing. It really confirmed my faith in humanity.
That's wonderful. I think every time I went by, there was like a group of people like coming in to see you. So you do have a wonderful community that seems to rally around you. And I think, that's a piece of this that I want to get into is kind of what comes next. And okay, so this is just the first time. Now, how long were you in treatment? How did they treat you?
So with AML, it's pretty aggressive. You have to go in and do very aggressive chemotherapy. And so I was in the hospital just to get into a first remission for over 2 months. And I mean, when I say that, like, I couldn't leave the hospital floor. Like, you're kind of boy in the bubble, sort of. And that was very intensive. And after that, they decided that the best thing to do would be a stem cell bone marrow transplant, which is basically where they replace your immune system. They transplant your immune system. So we started testing my family, and I was really lucky that my sister is a perfect match for me because with bone marrow transplants, you have to have the same genetics as your recipient, or your donor recipient have to have the same genetic backup. But, in this American melting pot, and I'm Irish Iranian, it's sometimes hard to find people that have exact matches, and you only have a 1 in 4 chance of having a sibling have a perfect match with you.
Wow. So already the miracles are starting. So I remember being so relieved to hear that your sister was a match, and that was, definitely a scary time, I think, for everyone. And you got through it with flying colors, and you then, I think, not too long after you went into remission, didn't you run a marathon?
I got very lucky. I had a friend of mine who did a lot of work with visualization. And I remember I had a phone call with her within those 48 hours before I went to the hospital, sort of asking her advice about how I should handle some of this diagnosis and what's happening to me. And she gave me a great piece of advice that I'll pass on to your community. She was like, look, you have to imagine, like, you have to think about something in your life that gives you, like, when you think about the moment, it gives you almost like a visceral, like, positivity in yourself. And she's like, you need to hold on to that and kind of create a little mantra for yourself about that. So for me at the time, I was running marathons in my 30s, and I'd been wanting to I hadn't done one in a few years, but I've been considering doing the LA Marathon again. My thing that I remembered that really would give me that positive rush when I thought about it was crossing the finish line of the LA Marathon. I gave myself that sort of little image of myself healthy again, being out there doing the things that I loved and challenged me. And I added that I sort of started equating my being in the hospital and treatment to marathon training, because it's for anyone who's run a marathon or any endurance sport, it's very one step in front of the other. And a lot of it is more mental than physical. It's really putting your mindset that you can get through this, that even though it feels like you're not going to make another step, you just have to keep going. And I really took all the marathon training and put it into getting through treatment, and kind of made that a goal for myself. And I was actually able to, I walked it more than ran it, the LA Marathon 6 months after my transplant that March. And I did it with the Leukemia Lymphoma Society, was able to raise money. That was the first time I was involved with them fundraising.
Oh my gosh, that's so amazing. And I love that you're bringing in this component of this visualization, because they say that, I've heard of these studies where they often have Olympic athletes do these visualizations, because apparently when however the brain is wired or the brain chemistry works, like, it doesn't know the difference between the visualization of it happening or it actually happening. Like, they have actual scientific studies where they've done this. So it's literally rewiring your body when you do these kinds of things. And that's the big piece, I think, because people think a lot of times of the law of attraction and visualization kind of going hand in hand. And I think that was the one big downfall of The Secret, which was that, the worldwide phenomenon talking about law of attraction and visualization, is that it's not just the visualization, it's feeling the emotion of it, feeling your body respond, and as if it's having something that you want, as if it's already happened. And I feel like that was the big piece that was missing in their formula. And even though it kind of opened people's eyes to this possibility of law of attraction and manifestation and all of these things, I do think what you're saying there is the key, is that you have to feel it in your body. And hey, it worked. Something worked.
And honestly, it doesn't have to be a huge phenomenon. I mean, it can be the feeling you get when you're with your pet or hugging someone you love. Like, it doesn't have to, like, when you think about something that you can use as this sort of visualization, it can be any type of thing in your life. It's just something in you that makes you feel kind of warm and kind of gives you kind of naturally will smile when you think about it. And whatever that thing is, big or small, you can work with that, and really it can be incredibly powerful.
And I think that kind of brings us to the next piece of your story. So now it's 2014. You were planning, I remember you called me and said, do you know of any travel agents or anyone? I'm looking to go to Kilimanjaro, and you were doing the research, and the next thing I heard, it was happening again and it was back. So tell us about that time.
Yeah, so I had a very intense year with cancer, but I also was very lucky that I had, very aggressive treatments, but they worked well. My sister was a match for me. I responded to the transplant great. I was off all meds. I was kind of getting back to life. And they sort of say by about 4 years after you've had a successful stem cell transplant, bone marrow transplant, they even start calling you using the other C word, which you're cured. So I was at 3.5 years and kind of thought my cancer chapter was behind me. And like you said, I decided I wanted to climb Kilimanjaro and go to Africa. And at first I tried to get people to come with me, but I couldn't convince anyone to come with me. So I was like, okay, I'll go on my own. I'll join a tour over there, and it's going to be amazing. And the week I was going to book my flights, I had, every 4 months I would see my oncologist. And I just had my regular checkup, and usually it lasted about 10, 20 minutes. My original oncologist had retired. I had a new person, and she's a lovely person. And I remember saying to her once, like, you seem like a wonderful doctor, but I don't want to really get to know you very well. I just want to come in and go. I hope you don't mind. And so I went in for my regular checkup, and my blood numbers were off. And my heart sank because I kind of knew immediately that the cancer was back.
Ugh.
And so I checked back into the hospital and kind of had the similar event of, 2 months in the hospital. But that time I decided that my trip to Kilimanjaro was not canceled. It was merely postponed. And a great friend of mine took a photograph of Kili inside a window and made a poster of it for me. So I put that in my hospital room, and it became my talking point. And I would tell everybody about Kilimanjaro, and I would invite everybody to come with me to Kilimanjaro. And then a sort of miraculous thing happened that my little solo trip became a group trip, because my nurses agreed to come. That doctor who I said I didn't really want to know very well, she agreed to come on the trip, and friends decided to come along. So it was really an amazing experience. And then we decided at that point, well, we should reach out to LLS, Leukemia Lymphoma Society, and see if we could do this as a fundraiser. So I got through treatment. I had another stem cell transplant. This time it was with an unrelated donor, a gentleman from Germany who was 24 at the time, donated his stem cells to me. So I had another stem cell transplant, and then got out of the hospital that fall. It was both times, actually all 3 times it's always come kind of in the spring around April. And it's usually a whole summer of being in and out of the hospital, and then kind of starting to get into recovery by the fall. Yeah, and then we reached out to LLS, and they loved the idea. So Climb2Cure was born from that.
Oh, amazing. I mean, I remember going to that room and seeing that picture, and it was so beautiful. It was a giant, poster size of the mountain, and it had it looked like you were looking out of a window. Whoever did it was like an artist, right? They actually made it look
Designer.
like Yeah, it looked like, a designer. So it looked like you're looking out of a window, which was just a wall in your hospital room, and you couldn't help but ask about it, like, what is that? It was beautiful. And so I remember just more and more people all of a sudden you say, because everyone that would come in that room would ask, what's that about? That's a very beautiful picture. And you would start enlisting one by one, and you got them all. So that was incredible. Also that LLS got involved. I mean, they're possibly the largest research organization for finding a cure for cancer. So when they got behind you, and then you did the Climb2Cure, at that time, I think the inaugural climb was about 14 or 15 people?
Yeah, it was actually 12 of us. And we did it in
12,
2017, okay. January of 2017, because of course, as Climb2Cure grew bigger, we realized we got a training program and really designed a whole program where also when you fundraise, you get travel reimbursements for the trip that you do. So it took a little longer, so we decided to hold off on our original climb so that we could be the first climb. And so it was 12 of us. We actually ended up being 12 women. We had 6 generations of women. Our youngest was turned 20 on the trek, and our oldest was in her 60s. And in January of 2017, on the full moon, we climbed Kilimanjaro. The other amazing thing was that we were able, as a team of 12, to raise close to $130,000, just as our 12 people.
Just in that first climb. So it's so amazing and keeps growing from there. So let's keep going. So after this first climb, what happened? Like, were you continuing to talk to LLS about what were the next steps? How are you going to grow this program? How you were going to be involved with it?
It was such an exciting year. Even before we actually climbed, it was already growing. I mean, there was so much interest. We teamed up with a fantastic trekking company called Embark out of Portland, Oregon, because it was really important to me too that the trekking company really understood the locals and really the environment and kind of had the same idea of just really working in a positive way, so that the idea that, you can take something like a bucket list item, like a climbing Kilimanjaro and a vacation for many ways, but you can actually add more meaning to it. So it started growing right away. And we had, to date, we've had over 200 people climb. Now we've expanded to other mountains, Kilimanjaro, Everest Base Camp. I'm going to Patagonia in November. We have Ecuador, and Machu Picchu just is announced for 2020. So it's really exciting that it just became this. Became bigger than myself, but it was also great too because we've had a lot of other cancer survivors. I shared a tent with my doctor, that same doctor, and one of my nurses was on our trip. So it's just amazing how it just has grown and it's touched so many lives, and we've been able to raise. To date now, I think we've raised over $2 million for cancer research, which is amazing. And what's fantastic about LLS is, not only do they fund research, but they also have incredible patient services, and they do a lot of advocacy on Capitol Hill for not just cancer patients, but healthcare in general. So it's a really amazing organization to support.
So incredible. And so take us back to the summit. What did that feel like when you got to the top of Mount Kilimanjaro?
It's interesting because so many times in life even ironically the crossing the finish line of the marathon, you have this idea it's going to be this amazing moment, and then in the reality, the time I did it actually after my first diagnosis, it was downpouring rain, and I kind of always imagined this glorious moment with the sun shining, and by the time I got to the finish line, I was freezing. It looked like a evacuation craziness going on. Wind was blowing, and I just wanted to get back to the hotel and have a thing of hot chocolate, Kili was different. It was like this moment, and it was even surpassed the moment. I mean, it was such an incredible experience to be on top of that mountain and to be on top of it with such an amazing group of people, and also to have done it for a larger cause. It's sort of the idea, like you can have an idea and then it can get much bigger than yourself. And I don't even have words to describe how amazing it was.
And Kili, it's one of is it the 7 summits?
Yep. It's the highest summit in Africa. So it's 19,341 feet. So they call it the rooftop of Africa.
And tell people why it's different from most other climbs.
Well, what's great about Kili, they call it every man's Everest, because it's not a technical climb. So it's challenging, but it's mainly like hiking day after day. And the big challenge with Kili is if you go too fast, you might get altitude sickness. So it's all about going slow. So it was also interesting because I feel like Killy, much like when you get a cancer diagnosis and have to get through recovery, it's very much about putting one step in from the other and going slow. And also sometimes, even if you do everything correctly, you might get altitude sickness. A close friend of mine, she actually was one of the sort of strongest, and she was one of the youngest in the group. She got like a little stomach bug and she couldn't make it to the top. So it's all about like enjoying the journey and not always being focused on like hitting the summit is the be all end all, but experiencing every day and seeing what was around you. And honestly, being on the mountain, you're unplugged for 8 days, which in our day and age,
that's a big deal.
and you go through 5 ecological zones because Killy's it was a volcano. So it really comes straight out of the desert. So you get to go through all these different ecological zones. You know, you spend a lot of time with your guides and your porters from Tanzania, and they're amazing people, and they know so much about the mountain and the culture. So it's just a really exciting time, but really everybody can do it. I mean, if you train, and sometimes people who are in really great shape, they get in trouble because they want to go too fast. And all the guides are like, no, you got to slow down so that you climatize. So it's interesting that it's sort of like the person who's slow and steady is really the person who's doing it right, which is a pretty cool thing.
Right. Slow and steady wins the race. I love that. So yeah, it's kind of this metaphor for life.
Yeah, it really is. And like I said, you have to enjoy every moment because, I mean, reaching the summit was amazing. But when I look back over those 8 days, I remember the quiet moments. I remember just laughing with everybody, or a conversation I had on the mountain, because you're with everybody 8 hours a day, you know, between eating and hiking. And those are the moments that I really cherish the most, not just the sort of hitting that high point.
Right. Enjoying the journey along the way. And I remember, you know, seeing you guys, the videos and the singing and the dancing. I mean, you guys really had a good time with it.
Yes. Yeah. The every time you get into the camp, all the porters come and they sing to greet everybody at the camp. And even if you're a little bit slower, because I always make sure that somebody, a guide is with the different groups, because some people sort of had a little harder time or just slower going, they would all come out and they would wait and they would sing for that person too.
No one left behind. I love it. Okay, so then also this other cool factor that you've brought into the mix is your background as a filmmaker, and you've been a cinematographer on award-winning features, commercials, documentaries, short films, and you are also making a documentary about your journey, correct?
Yes, I am. So we were filming, and just also sort of the whole birth of Climb2Cure, and this kind of idea that you can, you know, I had this crazy idea that I wanted to raise $1 million for cancer research, and I didn't know how I could do it. I didn't have $1 million in the bank that I could give anybody, but I kind of made that a goal. And within 2 years of having that dream, we accomplished it.
And so much more. You've doubled.
But it's just about everybody has the opportunity to, you know, I call it like you find your heartbreak and then you work to fix it. You know, and everyone has an opportunity to do that. And you don't have to completely change your life. You know, you don't have to suddenly say like, okay, I'm going to work in a nonprofit. You know, you can keep doing the things that you're doing in your life, but you can make some small tweaks or make certain commitments, and you really can have a huge difference. And I feel like so much in our world, we get bombarded with everything that's going on and the big issues, and it feels like your voice, your actions don't have a significance. But they really do. And you just have to kind of believe in that and something that you're passionate about and just see where it takes you, because it's a pretty amazing ride. So the documentary is about our experience, but it's really more about that idea too. And it goes also down to bone marrow transplants and stem cell transplants, which I think people don't know that, you know, there's doctors trying to find a cure for cancer, but literally you might be walking around with another human being's cure for cancer inside you.
Yeah, tell us a little more about that, because you did see technological advances between your first and second time with this. So when it came to the stem cells, can you talk about what happened the second time around?
Yeah, well, it's pretty miraculous. Actually, the third time is when I had more of the immune therapy.
Okay, if you guys aren't inspired already, and you may have forgotten, she's a 3-time cancer survivor. So 2018, it came back again, right?
Yes, 2018, I was actually planning to go to Everest Base Camp with Climb2Cure that fall. And it once again was about 3.5 years, which is highly unusual, like I said before. And I had one more of my checkups, and it came back for the third time. But that time around, which was last year, it was last April, because of all the advancements, it's actually a really amazing time to be giving money to cancer research, because it's sort of like all the theoretical stuff. We now have the technology. So immunotherapy and what they're doing with genetic markers and really targeting, chemotherapy used to just sort of be like a big hit everything hard. But now they can really go in and target therapies and target specific genes and markers. And it makes it a lot better for the patients to tolerate. And I think I believe we're going to find a cure for cancer within my lifetime because of all the immunotherapy. So I was actually able to take oral chemotherapy this last time around. So I wasn't having to I spent some time in the hospital, but I was mainly able to be at home, which is a huge thing when you're that sick and not feeling well, to be able to be surrounded by your house and your loved ones, and it's fantastic. I had to put off Everest Base Camp, but my team climbed it. And just knowing that they were on the mountain and they were, putting money behind, I've seen the money that we have raised actually have a change in the needle of the healthcare. Because for about 30 years, AML, there was no they improved how they did it, but there was no changes to the treatments. And now we have options.
Oh my gosh.
I don't believe in statistics, so I don't tend to look at them. But statistically, my cancer has a very low survival rate, especially when it's had reoccurrences. And now I'm proving that wrong, because we are getting a handle on it. We're getting a handle on a lot of the diseases that have eluded us. And that's so amazing to be around and available and alive to while it's happening.
Oh, so amazing. And yeah, I remember talking to LLS and getting, involved in trying to help you with the fundraising and supporting and all of that. And I learned a lot in that process as well, which I was like, if anyone's going to find a cure for cancer, it's probably going to be LLS. Like, I had no idea the advancements that were happening and that they were making scientifically and technologically. And so it's one of those things where people think, oh, my $10, my $100, like, I don't know, does it really make a difference? And like, you're here to say, like, 100%, it has changed the face of, especially for your specific kind of cancer, that you actually have options and better options on how to cure it and get better.
Yeah, and what's interesting with blood cancers, because blood cancers, first off, it's easy to get samples of blood cancers, and some are tumorous and some aren't. It's a really good cancer to study because, LLS has been involved, it's at least 80% of all of the huge cancer breakthroughs. There's been some research that LLS has funded along the way. So even though it's not just like, it goes into all sorts of different cancers, the discoveries that they're making and the drugs that they're using, and not just cancer, autoimmune diseases, its impact is everywhere. Like, a close friend that climbed with me is a breast cancer survivor. And she also chose LLS because she did the research and really felt like, in the space of organizations that are funding research, they're funding research that really has an effect everywhere. And, cancer is an epidemic. I mean, I challenge anyone to talk to anyone who hasn't had a close connection to cancer, either in their immediate family and friends or, one step removed. It's a huge issue, but we're really making huge strides at the same time, which is very exciting.
Yeah, it's so prevalent. We lost my grandfather to CLL. There's, so many different forms of it. And yeah, you're so right that everyone's lives, especially now as our environment gets more and more polluted and toxic, all of our lives are touched by cancer. So the sooner we can get to the bottom of these answers to find the cures and have these options for treatments, the better. And I'd love to hear a little bit more about how people can get involved and help. You mentioned Be the Match earlier. So tell us a little bit more about that.
So what a lot of people don't know is, to be a donor, to be a stem cell donor, is a relatively easy procedure. It used to be a lot more painful for the donor, but now it's basically, I think 90% of donors give their stem cells through periphery blood, meaning that they go in and they have, if anybody has ever had given platelets. It's a similar, or you take a shot for about a week that causes your body to overproduce stem cells, and they go out into your regular bloodstream. And then you go, and for about an hour and a half, they usually put on a DVD player. They take your blood out like you're giving blood, and they spin the stem cells out, and they put your blood back in you. So you're not really losing anything. And literally, those stem cells can save a human being's life and can cure cancer. So it's an amazing opportunity that people do. And it's also something very huge because, like I said before, if you don't have the correct genetics, I mean, a lot of people don't survive because they're waiting for a donor. And if I hadn't had a donor, I would not be talking to you guys today, especially in different ethnic communities, African-American communities, having more people, the more people on the registry, the better. It's interesting because a lot of people come from the registry, come from Germany, because Germany has a mandatory, they put people on the registry. And even if you get on the stem cell registry, it doesn't mean that you're committing to it. It just means that if somebody matches you, they will reach out to you and they will check in to see if it's something that you want to do. So just putting your name on the registry does not commit you to anything. But if you are at a point in your life and have 2 weeks to give, you can save another person's life.
Oh my gosh. I mean, and that was, this young kid, I mean, he was like 20 or something when he did this, right? And in Germany, and he gave his stem cells, which it seems very similar to just having to give blood. It's not a bone marrow, like with, I think your sister, that was a whole different process where it's more intensive.
You have to agree so you can get it both ways. The first way is periphery blood, which is a slightly longer version, but it's basically like donating blood. Or they go in, you get put under, and they go and they take some bone marrow, like your lower back area, but you're completely out for that time. The only time they would, when you sign up for the registry, you have to agree to be willing to do both. But typically, the only time you would do the one where you have to go and have surgery for, and it's outpatient. My sister did it, and she described that after she got out, it felt like, if you slip on the ice and like hit your butt, like you're sort of like that for a couple days. But the only time they do that is for some reason in children. They have a better, they sometimes respond better to bone marrow. But for adults, it really doesn't matter. So most of the time you're giving the blood. And then if it turns out that your match is a child, they might request you to do the outpatient surgery. But like I said, that also is really not, for what you're giving, it really is not that big of a deal. You know what I mean? It's a big deal, but it's not a huge...
Right, you're not giving up a whole organ or something here.
No, not overly painful. There's not a huge recovery time. I mean, it's outpatient. You'll be sore for a few days, but that's kind of it.
And you can save a life. And so you actually got to meet your donor.
I haven't yet, actually.
Oh, I thought you guys were going to meet at some point. Are you connected?
Well, here's what happened if your donor's from the United States, there's a year where it's anonymous. You can write them a letter. I actually wrote my donor a letter to thank him, but they keep it anonymous. And then it's 2 years of being anonymous if your donor's from Germany. So I had actually reached out and got his information about 2 or 3 months before I got my third diagnosis. And at that point in time, because we weren't sure, we had some of his stem cells frozen. So we actually were able to give me a boost of his stem cells. That's sort of how I am back in remission now this time around. But we had decided that I should hold off reaching out just in case, because at the very beginning, they didn't know if they were going to reach back out to him, if they were maybe going to ask for some more stem cells. So I actually want to reach out to him because I do have his email address. And I would love to meet him. I hope I get to meet him soon.
And so, but he is aware that he did help you.
Yes. And he received, I wrote him a letter and, it was anonymous, but they all connect it. And it's also amazing too, because when you give stem cells, you have to have them transplanted within 24 hours. So there's also this amazing group of people that my stem cells were hand carried from Germany to here by volunteers that fly back and forth all over the world.
Oh my gosh.
On 9/11, one of the very few approved last flights, was a stem cell donors, stem cells that needed to get to a recipient. And so there's a huge amount. I mean, Be the Match is our national registry, bethematch.org, where people can go on and get more information and get registered. And then they also work to coordinate all the transplant services. Because another thing, too, if you decide to be a donor, you have to get some extra testing. That's at no cost to you. It is 100% covered by the recipient's insurance, and by, and if there's any issues, Be the Match will also offset. They also have, they help patients get to, where they need to get. They help recipients find the right centers to go to and stuff like that. So it's an amazing organization. And like I said, especially in our day and age where there's so much divisiveness, it really shows like we all are the same. I have a guy, like I have DNA. If you took my blood, I have the XY chromosome in my blood DNA. And it's a real reminder that, at the end of the level, we have a lot of opportunity to help each other on a one-to-one level.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, it's so amazing. All right, so everybody go to bethematch.org. You could save a life. This is so incredible. Okay, and then the last time around, now when you came out, each time you've done something pretty amazing, you got married.
I did. My wonderful boyfriend, now husband at the time, was by me the entire way this last round, which was amazing. And we got married last April. We're actually training to go to Patagonia together with Climb2Cure. So we're currently fundraising and excited to go and have another adventure and support LLS. And yeah, it's amazing. So we're going to do that in November. And like I said, too, another reminder, if people want to find out more about Climb2Cure and if they want to join, we have climbs going to Everest, Space Camp, to Kilimanjaro, to Machu Picchu, and to Ecuador all through 2020. So they can also go on the LLS website, the teamintraining.org site, and get some more information for upcoming trips, because it's a great opportunity to fundraise. And like I said, if the amount you raise, you could actually get travel reimbursements. So if you could raise a lot of money, you could get your trip paid for, which is pretty cool too.
It's incredible. And so for Climb2Cure, also the Climb2Cure.com website, that can get them to where they need to go?
Yes. You can either go through teamintraining.org, and I think I sent you that link, or if they just go to Climb2Cure.com, there's links to the LLS websites.
Okay, so we'll include all of those in the show notes for everybody, and you can always just use good old Google. All right, so now you don't quit. You're still going at it. Not only have you created this Climb2Cure with LLS, and you're continuing to do these incredible trips and raise money for a cure for cancer, but you're also out there speaking about it on stages, your experience, what you've learned, how to inspire and help others. You have gone back to school to continue to develop and create a company or a program that you hope will be taking sort of treatments to the next level. Can you tell us a little bit about your project that you have in the works?
Yeah, so, for me, the power of visualization and the power of my mindset, I know really helped my positive outcome of a cancer survivor. And I remember one of my doctors saying to me that they can see every day in the hospital that patients' attitudes do make a difference. And they wish that they could put that in a bottle and prescribe it. But so what I'm trying to do is create a program for starting with cancer patients, although this can shift to all sorts of different health issues. And even if you're going through a hard time, trying to infuse some positivity and attitude when you're going through active treatment. And I've been really interested in virtual reality and utilizing that and mindfulness techniques, just because it's so important to remember, when you get a cancer diagnosis, it feels like your life is over and it feels like you're going to be a different person, and things will shift and change. I'm not, sugarcoating. It's not easy, but you can really still be you, and you need to hold on to those things that you believe in and give yourself goals that you can just think forward on, and really that will help get through any diagnosis and any issue. So I'm really excited to be working on that. I'm starting a company called Envision RX, which will be, developing a program with that. And I'm just looking forward. And I just like also helping give people hope and inspiring them that, like I said, a cancer diagnosis, it's going to shift, but in some ways it might also hone in, because, you do realize what's really important and matters. where you are in your career, what you think you look like, all those things like melt away. And when, you hear those 3 words, you have cancer, you really hone in on what's important in life. And a lot of that are, the people that you love and, your values and kind of what you want to share with the world. And everybody has a lot to share. And I think that everybody has the ability to make a huge difference. So that's kind of what my next phase is. And I'm just trying to get that out there into the world.
That is all incredible. And, that is something that I did want to touch on a deeper level with you is the community and how it became a movement, because really just by you sharing your story, as you said, you tapped into your heartbreak and you shared that with the world. And now there is this whole movement because of you, one person, your vision to climb Mount Kilimanjaro. And so I don't know if I've ever seen so many people rally in such an incredible way, from friends and families to the doctors, the nurses. I mean, you definitely have inspired people to take action, to get involved, and to join you on the journey. So what do you think is sort of, the secret sauce to had that effect on people? Let's call it the Lila effect.
I mean, I think part of it is I'm a little tenacious when I get something I want people to get involved in. I'm not, but I think it's, first off, I really believe strongly in the organization and what I was trying to accomplish. I really was like, okay, LLS, us working for LLS to raise money, I really could believe so strongly in that. But I think it's about just following your heart. I mean, the secret sauce is there wasn't much, but I just followed my heart. And also it's being okay to be vulnerable. When you get a cancer diagnosis, especially when, you're in the hospital for so long, it's sometimes really hard to ask for help. And you feel like you should, I'm a very independent person, and, friends also did a GoFundMe campaign and people helped me financially because I have over the last, what is it now, almost 10 years, every time I have to stop working for at least a year and a half. You have to rely on others. But when you give yourself vulnerability and you're honest and you share your life and share your passions, it's amazing what comes back out. So I think it's not being afraid to be vulnerable and not being afraid to find something you're passionate about and then just tell the world. And people will be inspired by that and people will join you in your vision, and you're going to find those partners that will make something you thought could never happen. Like I said, I didn't know how I was going to raise $1 million for cancer research, but I really felt that that was something I really needed to do. And I was able to do that, and also able to, create an experience that now is other people's experience. My favorite is when I meet somebody who's done Climb2Cure and they tell me their individual stories and what they've experienced on it and how it felt to fundraise and give back to an organization that's doing a lot of good. That's really powerful. So for me, it's like it being that little starting point, but I love how the ripple effect just moves forward. And if you put something positive out there, I do believe that it will grow. And I think that's what we need in this world, is we need everybody just to focus on those things that they can do, and just don't look backwards, just keep pushing forward.
Yeah, and I mean, really, I think that is tapping into one of the biggest secrets of life, and I think Joseph Campbell said it best, is follow your bliss. And, this theme comes up a lot on this show. And when we were talking to Deborah Anderson about her documentary, Women of the White Buffalo, and how that all unfolded for her. And she was simply following her heart and something that she believed in. And it's amazing how the universe truly conspires and comes up to meet you where you're at when you are coming from that pure place, from your heart. And, especially when it has a bigger mission to make the world a better place. And it's so exciting to see the miracles that can unfold. And you are the living embodiment of that. I mean, you have had so many gifts come out of these terrible, what could be perceived as terrible experiences. But how do you feel about that? Do you feel like, it's sort of been this odd blessing in your life to have gone through these?
It's a hard one, right? I mean, I don't know if I would call it a blessing, but I do think that I am lucky to have had the experience and one thing that, like I said, and this happens, I think it's not just cancer, any life-changing moments, that if you have that chance that all kind of quote unquote regular life, the day-to-day stuff that makes us feel very busy, but really at the end of the day, it doesn't do anything. When you have something, it could be a death of a parent, it can be a cancer diagnosis, something that really stops everything and causes you to sort of evaluate what's happening in life and really value what's important, it's a huge opportunity. So I do feel very lucky and blessed to have had that opportunity. And I feel like I am probably more truer on my path now than I was with it before cancer. So I feel blessed in that way. But I don't wish a cancer diagnosis, or I wish it hadn't happened to me. But at the same time, too, you got to take what life gives you, and you have to rise to it and just go like, okay, this is the challenge. And also remember, too, everybody has challenges in life. And it's a good reminder to really be kind to people and know that they're going through challenges. And also, it's not easy. I mean, there's been very dark moments in the last 8 or 9 years where it's hard. I mean, positive attitude is good, but it also, you have to deal with a lot of fear and anxiety and depression. And I've had bouts with that too. And you just have to kind of keep pushing forward through all of it and just know, life is beautiful, and, connections and human beings and having these kind of conversations and having friendships that last a whole lifetime. That's what makes life so special, and just embracing those moments and celebrating them and seeing what we can all do together when we come together with that type of attitude and say, like, let's handle these big issues that are facing our world.
Yeah, I mean, that's such incredible insight. And of course, yes, no, I would never wish any of these things to happen to anyone. But the fact that you are you're resourceful, like to dig so deep within yourself, such a resourceful person in that way, to have created something that was not a pleasant or good experience, that you wanted to go through. You never would have chosen that, I'm sure, for yourself. But to see what you've done with it is just so inspiring. And I think that's why I do see so many people responding to you and the program that you've created, and people really get passionate about the climbs that they're doing and the fundraising that they're doing. And so we all thank you for being that light, that guiding light to help so many other people, to show people that, a cancer diagnosis doesn't have to be a death sentence, that you can still get through it. You can do incredible things in the world. And what you said about enjoying the journey of the hikes, for example, on Mount Kili, that, that is what it's about. It's the people, the connections, the friends that you've made, the people that have supported you. I think, when we are on our deathbed someday, like, those are the things we look back on and appreciate. I mean, at all of my grandparents' funerals, not one person got up and said, oh, they were really good at their job. It was about the love they left behind, the people that cared for them, the wonderful, kind things they had done for people. That's what's important.
Yeah. And I think too, finding your community and then also doing something bigger than yourself within that community is an incredibly empowering feeling, and that shapes differently for every person. But I think the thing that's universal is if you find people that are like-minded and like-spirited and create a call to action within yourself, it's amazing where it's going to take you.
And after having gone through all of this, if you could go back to a younger version of yourself, is there any advice you might give?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's just, trying not to overstress the things in life that don't really matter. And I still struggle with that now. It's like you have these moments where life stops, you feel like you get insight, and then you go back into your regular life. And, we get so buried in the day in and day out. And I think just having that ability just to smile and laugh and pick yourself up and not be so overly worried, like you said, about like the perfect job, and, just more like, okay, well, you know what? And just enjoy your contributions that you can make on a small level. The biggest thing I think I would tell myself is not to worry so much about what my career looks like and family, where I'm going to be, if I'm going to have children, like all that stuff doesn't matter as long as you're just following your heart and you're living each day as best you can.
Yeah, and I love that you talked about laughter, because I feel like that truly can be the best medicine, especially when you're in a dark place.
Oh, yeah, hugely so. I mean, I think being able just to laugh and just to remember, and also just to remember everything is temporary. The worst, it will pass. Also remember when you're in laughter, with those good things in life, to really enjoy those moments, because they're going to pass too, but you're going to need those to hold you up, to carry you through the times that might be a little darker. It's all the balance of that.
I mean, and you guys listening to Lila speak, I mean, if she can get through what she's been through, please draw inspiration from that, because no matter what you're going through today, what challenges, hurdles, frustrations, at the end of the day, you can get through it. It's not that bad. You will find a way, you will get the support, and you just got to hang in there and ask for help and trust that the right people are going to show up to support you to get through whatever it is that you need to get through. So thank you so much, Lila. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming and talking to our listeners today to give them this inspiration and support. And I hope that they will check out the Be the Match website and sign up and register to potentially save a life. Are there any other last thoughts you have for our listeners today?
No, I mean, I think I want to thank you, Heather, for creating this great forum and these things together. And I just, like you said, I think just, everyone follow their passion, their heart, and, just commit to one small change that you think is going to make it a positive impact. And just take one idea and just keep planting that seed every day. And I think that if everybody did that, if everybody took something that they, kind of like I said, find their heartbreak and then work to fix it, and take your little slice, and it will make a difference. If we all work on our little slice, our little piece of the pie, and feel some positivity in it, it's going to have a huge effect.
I love that. Just one foot in front of the other every day, you guys. You can do it. We're all in this together. Thank you, Lila, so much for being such an inspiration and beautiful soul. And we hope you'll come back and visit us and keep us updated on all of your amazing projects.
Yeah, I can come back and tell you guys all about Patagonia.
I love it. Amazing. All right. Thanks, Lila. Have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the Shine Strategy Podcast. I invite you to join me at shineinsiders.com for a free masterclass where you can get more inspiration and strategies to get visible and change the world. Your voice matters. Please subscribe, rate, and share this show so we can continue to grow on this journey together. Until the next one, it's Heather Burgett, your Shine Strategist, signing off.